Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Help Shift Automations and its best practices. Thank you for joining us. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The session will be of 45 minutes, including 30 minutes webinar presentation, including a demo, and 15 minutes for question and answers. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand later as well. You can ask your questions throughout the entire session via Q&A chat panel on the screen. We will discuss the questions in the Q&A round, and I'll get back to you with answers individually via email as well. The agenda of the webinar today is to introduce you to automations in detail, why every support team should implement it, and the value it brings to the table. We will see different types of automations, that is, new issue automations, time-based automations, and their respective use cases. We will see and discuss industry best practices for automations through a demo, followed by a Q&A session. Let's move on to what are automations and how do we define them. Automations are help shift features that let you automate different parts of your workflows and make things easier for both your customers and your agents. These function on if and then conditional statements. If certain filter conditions are met, then automation performs certain actions based on those conditions. We have number of filters to set the conditions and make sure the actions are aligned as per our requirement. Automations are one of the features of our workflow management. Admins have the rights to set up automations in the dashboard. Why should one use automations? And what are the benefits of using them? Diving deep into benefits of using automations by below examples. Deflect common queries by routing the issues to different automated workflows. This also helps in streamlining the workflows. You can improve your performance metrics like time to first response, total time to resolve, CSATs, and so on by using automations. By adding tags, reporting gets efficient and your SLAs will be well managed. You can re-engage with your customers by improving user experience by automations. Automations are also helpful in setting up user expectations right using automated replies and workflows. You can add auto-resolve or reject, leading to better utilization of agents' time and other resources. You can prioritize certain specific issue types by segmenting issues, user types, using custom issue fields. This also helps in better customer engagement and faster resolution. You can also use automations to update ticket status automatically based on certain time and conditions as per your requirement. There are two kinds of automations, new issue automations and time-based automations. The major difference between these two is that new issue automations allow you to perform an action when an issue is created in the dashboard, whereas time-based automations perform an action based on how long an issue has been either with an agent or a customer in the unresolved state. The second difference is new issue automations are usually used to assign a new issue to an agent, a bot, or a queue, whereas time-based automations are usually used to manage SLAs. We'll see more details in the next slides. Moving on to new issue automation and its specific use cases. As said, new issue automations allow you to complete a number of different actions immediately as soon as an issue is created in the dashboard. As you can see on the right-hand side, as soon as a new issue is created, a reply back to the customer as an automation is set in the dashboard. So how does new issue automation works? From a set of different actions, we can choose these options. We can assign a new issue to a queue, agent, or bot. We can add or update tags or custom issue field values from new issue automations. We can set replying back to the customer automation by setting an expectations from our end. We can add internal private notes within the team using these automations. New issue automations are also used to mark an issue as rejected or resolved automatically. We have to make sure that if this automation runs, this ends all the subsequent automations in place. We also have to keep in mind these new issue automations work in a cascading order. Let's see an example of the cascading effect in new issue automations. Assuming there are 9 different automations running on an issue type with the priority order set in the screenshot on the left-hand side. So if the first automation runs, it rejects and exits the issue. This means if first automation runs, all of the other automations become invalid. Automation 2 is assigning the issue to a priority queue, which is an assignment automation. Automation 3 and 4 are running the predict label and setting and triggering the relevant automation. Automation 5 is tagging automation with the custom issue field value being set to VIP. Similarly, automations 6, 7, 8, and 9 are assignment automations which are overriding the previous assignment automation. We have to keep in mind the automations, specifically assignment automations, override the past automations that has run on an issue. We have to keep in mind the last automation will be the final automation running on an issue. In this case, automation 9, assigning the issue to the missing bot, will be overriding all the previous assignment automations. In this case, 2, 6, 7, and 8. This is how cascading in new issue automations work. What are time-based automations and its use cases? These allow you to run automations on any open issues, considering time as a factor. These manage large volume of issues quickly and effectively by maintaining SLAs, escalating priority issues within the team, and following up with end users automatically based how long an issue has been opened. As time is a factor, we can apply days, hours, minutes, or seconds as a filter. There are 4 different time condition options within time-based automations. When the agent's first response was not sent in to the ticket, when the agent's next response was not sent in, we can also use these as a follow-up with the user if he or she hasn't replied back on an issue. After a couple of follow-ups, if the user has not replied back, we can auto-resolve the tickets using time-based automations. The 4th option is if the user has been offline for quite some time based on the conditions we have set, making note that these are applicable for web chat users only, and these has a user detection presence feature inbuilt. There's a screenshot to understand the if condition in a time-based automation. There are a couple of examples and ways to set in a time-based automation. The first screenshot depicts an if condition. The action items in time-based automations can allow one to add in a private note, reply back to a customer, assigning it to a queue, agent, bot, similar to the new issue automations, auto-resolve or reject issues, or update tags or custom issue fields. Some of the important use cases around time-based automations are automatically closing tickets when the customers don't respond, re-engaging with the customers with a couple of follow-ups. We can alert agents internally in the cases of missing SLAs. We can escalate the issues in case of missing SLAs as well. Use these to update tags in custom issue fields, auto resolve or reject issues, and so on. A few of the general best practices across new issue automations and time-based automations are here. If you want to create a real-time chat experience, you will want to make sure to use time-based automations. Time-based automations are necessary for maintaining your SLAs like total time to resolve, time to first response, CSATs, and help you re-engage the user. This creates a real-time chat type experience. We have to make note of time-based automations, especially for agent first response and next response filter. It is triggered only one per issue. New issue automation best practices include keeping things clean, making the nomenclature of the automation name clean. That makes it easier to edit. And we can use text template feature to handle all the tickets of similar type in multiple languages. One of a very common general best practices is to use these automations on a filter of different platforms, as in iOS, Android, web chat, email, and so on. We have to be extremely careful while assigning the name or the nomenclature of these automations, especially with the new issue automations. Once we start using it, it will be n number of line items and depicting a proper nomenclature as per our platform, our game, or our app. It is important to set in a proper naming convention. Now let's go through best practices based on different industries. Covering gaming best practices here. Gaming companies use automations to personalize workflow for paying versus non-paying users. So games with different in-app purchases generally prioritize their paying users. One can also build automations to route issue based on how the agents specialize in different games. If the agents are game specific, we can apply filter in the automations by app. If the agents specialize in different tiers, then we can create a custom issue field and add it as a filter in the automations while creating it. Considering the naming convention of the new issue automations and time-based automations, we can include the name of game, app, language, different platform types in the automation name. Moving on to e-commerce and fintech best practices while using automations. In e-commerce, different companies use automations to set expectations around business hours. If the businesses don't work 24/7 for customer service, they can set in certain automations to let the customers know about their operation timings. This also helps in creating and setting the right expectations with their customers. E-commerce companies also use automations to route people for their issue types. As in the organizations with many different departments, automations can be set in to allow assigning the issues to different departments as and when the issue incomes. Automations can also help route these issues to specific agents and help in SLA expectations. Talking about the fintech companies, issues related to money, personal information can be routed to specialized agents via automation, since these are sensitive information. And if there is a team who excel or is trained for this specific issue type. Fintech companies also use to frequently update tags and custom issue fields based on the incoming issues. Moving on to the demo part of the webinar, we'll discuss where and how to find automations in the dashboard, a couple of examples of new issue automations, and a few of time-based automations. So I have logged into my demo account, and let's get started with the demo. So this is your landing page as soon as you have logged in your dashboard. To get started with automation and setting them up, we'll have to click on Settings, go down below and find automations here. You can find new issue automations and time-based automations both in this section. You can find in previously built automations list here. In order to edit one, you'll have to click on it and you can see, select, edit and save the changes. You can also click on the settings icon and create an edit or a duplicate or delete from here. In order to create a new automation, click on the plus icon, give the title of the automation according to your nomenclature, game, language, or platform. If conditions are used to set in the conditions based on which the then or the actions of the automations will be triggered. You can save an automation and enable it from here or directly from the page. Similarly, for time-based automations, you can find the previously created ones here, the ones active and inactive. In order to create one, the same dialog box appears with a title, setting in the filters and setting in the actions in then section. Enabling it and saving the options of the automations are right here. Important thing to note is you can change the priority of the automations directly. If you click on change order, you can drag and drop, or you can change the positioning directly by editing the numbers right here. As we have discussed during the presentation that new issue automations work in cascading order. What I mean by that is if, let's say, both the first and second automations are triggered, the first in the list will go first if the conditions are met, followed by the second one. For specific assignment type of automations, when an issue is either assigned to a bot, agent, or different workflows, or a queue, since the ones further down in the automation list will be triggered last, we have to make sure we are setting up the automation's priority correct, because the last automation will be triggered if the conditions are met at the end. So that is of great importance. Moving on to a specific new issue automation use cases. The first one is to set a custom issue field value for incoming issues with payment criteria. Later, once we'll be capturing the custom issue field value, we'll assign that issue to a payment bot. Getting started with custom issue field value capturing, we have to keep in mind we can do and skip this step of creating an automation by capturing the value directly via our SDK. The second option is if we use Smart Intents, Predict Sense AI feature, or issue classification bot, then we can capture the custom issue field values through that respective workflow and we can skip this automation step. For now, since it's a use case of an automation, I'll be showcasing you an example how to do that. So if the platform is web chat, or we can select multiple channels as well, the first message contains any of these words related to payment, then issue subject is a custom issue field whose action is to apply, the automation action is to set the custom issue field value to payment or refund. Once this is done, a payment issue bot is to be triggered. So another example, just to show you two different use cases in one example or application. So if the customer type is our custom issue field, which is set to high paying customer, and another custom issue field is payment or refund. If both of these conditions are met, including the platform of any of the three, then the issue is to be assigned to a bot called payment, which is already set and active. Another thing to note here is among the custom issue field values, which we are capturing as a customer type and an issue type, customer type as high paying customer is getting captured automatically via SDK, and issue type as payment or refund is getting captured via the automation, which we have built in just before. So in the cascading order, the first automation will run first, the second one will run at the same moment, just after first, and a bot is to be triggered as a final outcome of this automation. Let's go to an example and see how to do that. As you can see, both the automations have run successfully. Since the bot is triggered, that means the customer issue field values were captured correctly. So if you go on to the show logs option, you can see this was the issue. The first automation was run successfully, and subsequently after that, the bot assignment issue automation worked. So that was our first use case of setting a custom issue field value and triggering a bot based on those values. In the same way, instead of assigning the same issue to a bot, we can assign it to an agent or a queue. If you see in this example, if let's say the custom issue field customer type is set to high paying customer, then it is to be always assigned to a queue called VIP. So based on different issue types or language, or if we use queues for different platforms or different languages, we can prioritize our issues based on assigning them to those respective queues. So this is the second use case example of new issue automations. The third example is to automatically rejecting or resolving an issue. So let's take an example of a new feature released in your app, which has a bug. So many of your players will be reaching out to you with a specific bug query, and your team is already working on it. So what we can do in this case is we can create an automation, and we can automatically assign it to a queue, or we can resolve it directly as well. So if the issue subject is, if the custom issue field value is set to new bug game, whatever the bug name you have kept in the system is, you can assign it to a queue with a name similar to something like SDK bugs. You can reply back to the customer saying, thank you for reaching out, we are working on this, and you'll be getting an update in the app once it is fixed. So you can resolve the issue right then and there. This will help you in your SLA management and setting the user expectations right. We can also see another example of a new issue automation use case where we could send an automated reply to our customers on special conditions. For example, if our business doesn't support 24/7 customer support live experience or service, then we can create an automation called non-business working hours. And filter could be if issue arrival time is between something as per our requirement, we can set in from and to time. And let's say the app or platform is all which we want to select. For now, I'll select it as web chat. Then the condition is to reply back to the customer saying any specific message. So thank you for reaching out. We are closed right now and we'll reach back once we are online. You can add in multiple actions as well, like assigning this to a particular queue, assigning it to an agent for clearing out backlogs the next day, or we can have specific bots for these conditions as well. As soon as we save it, click on it, we can prioritize the automation and save the order. So these are the examples of a few new issue automation use cases which we can use in our day-to-day customer support management workflows and make our system more efficient and effective. Going ahead to time-based automation and its use cases. Time-based automations, as the name suggests, is dependent on time-based conditions and actions. Diving into the use cases directly, let's see how to create one. You can give the title of the time-based automation. If we see in the conditions, we can see there are 4 different filters we can use, which is different from the new issue automations. So if the agents or bots first response was not sent in, or the next response of the agents or the bots was not sent to the user. The third is user has not replied back. So this one can be used for a couple of follow-ups. And if the user has been offline for, this specific fourth filter is available for web chat user presence detection and is to be specifically used for web chats. If any of the 4 filters is selected, we can see the filters more detailed options are in different time units. So either seconds, minutes, hours, or days, based on what different condition we want to set in. Based on the filter, we can add in multiple filters as well. And then the action could be to the use cases where time-based automation comes in, is we can reply back to the customer, let's say for a couple of follow-ups, we can assign it to certain members, we can use this to escalate an issue. So if an agent or a bot has missed replying back and the user is following up, so based on the time duration, we can assign it for an escalated review. We can add it internal private notes. We can automatically resolve or reject. This is most commonly used time-based automation use case. Similar to new issue automations, we can use it to update tags and custom issue field values. Let's see the use cases which we have already built in. The first one is the agents or the bot reply was not sent in. So we can reply back to the customer. An automation will be replying back saying apologies for the delay in response. Maybe the team is overloaded or they'll reach back to you as soon as possible. And we can add an internal private note assigning and triggering a notification to the agent to reply back to the user to maintain the SLA. The second use case is the agent or bot's next response was not sent in. So we have to keep in mind the first reply and the next reply of an agent or a bot is triggered only one time per issue. So we can't repeat it multiple times since this is to be sent only with respect to first reply and the next response to the user. The third use case is, which is more common, is when the user doesn't reply back to an open ticket, and we can set in one automation to have a follow-up, and the next automation could be used to close and automatically close the ticket. We'll see an example of this use case. So if we go to the user's view and create a new automation, we have to keep in mind, for the sake of the demo, I have kept in the lowest time filter, which is 15 seconds, so that I can show you how it actually works. Turning both the automations on because we want an automation to follow up with the customer in 15 seconds, and after the 15 seconds or in total of 30 seconds, we want the bot or the automation, to automatically resolve the ticket. I've turned it on. Go back to the user saying help. Go back to the dashboard. Then reply back to the customer saying okay. So at this stage, we'll be waiting for the customer to reply back. Let's say the user is not replying back. So according to our automation settings, within 15 seconds, which it triggered, and in the next 15 seconds, if the player doesn't reply back, then the automation should automatically close the ticket. In similar way, we can have multiple follow-ups and then choose to resolve or reject a ticket. As you can see, the automation was triggered for the follow-up, and then the automation was triggered for automatically resolving it. So these are a couple of use cases of new issue automations and time-based automations, which we can use in order to make our system more efficient and as per the industry best practices. We can use different other combinations or different filters within new issue automations and time-based automations to apply and achieve the results we are targeting for. So coming back to our presentation, here are business impact of automations. Since there is no manual assignment, it is less work for admins to manually tag and triage issues. Less work for agents, cleaner metrics as closing out issues are made automatic. We can filter out spams, less work for agents and admins, better SLAs. There's a better way of segmenting customers, which provides better experience to customers based on different levels, spend, tiers, and type. It's better to manage SLAs using automations. Time-based automations also give you a real-time chat experience if properly set in the system. Moving on to our Q&A session of the webinar. If you have any questions related to automations or related features or use cases, please feel free to put in your questions in the chat option on your screen. I'll be happy to read them out and give you the appropriate answers ahead.
So I'll be taking your questions, everyone. Feel free to put in your questions in the chat window on your screen, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions now. We have a question already saying, is it possible to create an automation based on phrase or a word used in customer's message? For example, the player uses payment word in the message and corresponding automation is triggered. So we covered this example in the demo and in the presentation. So this is very much possible. You can create a new issue automation, and the filter or the condition could be title or first message. And you can mention all possible synonyms which a user could mention with respect to a payment, for example, cost, payment, amount, or something. And based on this condition, you can set in an output or a result, and this will set your automation to trigger. We have another question asking about how automation handle multiple languages. It is actually a very good question considering the companies or the use cases are all around the globe. So this basically depends on your platform, your SDK, and a feature called text template in HelpShift. So if you're using in-app and you want to use multiple languages for different automations, then your SDK can capture the language for you of the user device, populate it in a custom issue field as a value, and then you can set in the automation considering the field value, the custom field value as a condition. Now you can use text templates, which is a feature to help you manage different translated text or content in HelpShift. You can create and save all the translations in text templates and use them in automation. So once your language is automatically detected, your relevant language automation will be triggered if you have the possible translations already set up in text templates and included in automation. If you're using a platform as a web chat, your browser details can be captured via your settings in web chat, and based on that, your relevant automation in that particular language can be triggered using text templates. So if you hear multiple languages in help shift, you probably have to use text template, which is available in settings. We have a question asking how to get the recorded webinar. So everyone who has signed up for the webinar, they'll receive an email with the presentation which was made and the link to listen to the recording of the webinar again. So it will be shared with you automatically after the session is over. We have a question asking the admin is not able to see the fourth drop-down filter option user has been offline for in time-based automation and is asking where is it. So a possible explanation would be if you don't use web chat, then it is not there for your use in automation as it is very unique to web chat. And then if you do have web chat and you are using it, you have to turn on the user presence detection feature in the app settings. Then you'll be able to see it in your drop-down value in time-based automation. There is another question on rejecting spam issues using automation. So the question or the use case goes is it possible to block or set up an automation that rejects messages from a returning customer that is spamming an inbox? So yes, there is a way to block a user. So you can block a specific user ID via SDK by configuring the ID in it. But if you need a more flexible solution to this issue or a problem, you could use custom issue field, and you can pass the ID of the player through your SDK in custom issue field value and use this as a condition to set an automation to block. In this way, you can use custom issue fields as one-stop solution to pass in any information from your in-app and use it as a condition in an automation for it to trigger. That's about all the questions which we have received. If you have any more questions, I'm here. Put them out in the chat option in the screen. I think that's all the questions which we have received now. Thank you for joining us for the webinar and have a good day ahead. Thank you, everyone.